This is Mrs. Wainwright's math class, Chapter 1, Lesson 2B, Number Forms. Today we'll learn about standard form, word form, and expanded form. Our learning target: by the end of today's lesson, you should confidently be able to say, I can read, write, and represent numbers from 100 billions down to 10 thousandths in 3 different forms. Before we start our first form, first we have a disclaimer. I separated lesson 2A and 2B and copied some of the stuff from 2A into 2B. Unfortunately, I cannot easily change the number, so I know I should start with the number 1, but we're not starting with the number 1 today. Today we'll be starting with number 4. Your worksheet will go along with the numbers as you see in the video. So, our number 4. Our vocabulary word is standard form. And we know this is actually a review from a lesson earlier in this chapter. Standard form is the regular way we write a number. So if I said write 782, you would naturally write 782. That's the standard form for 782. It's the regular way we write the number. Let's write 35,465. 35, comma for the thousand, 465. And that's the standard way to write 35,465. And this is the standard way to write 126,791,607. So standard form is the regular way we write a number. Let's take a look at some types of problems you'll have to solve when finding the standard form. There may be some difficulties in here, things that are more difficult than they were earlier in this chapter, so do make sure you follow through with the lesson. So if the question says, what is the standard form of 2,302, let's try and solve it. We might say, that's easy. 2,000 looks like this. And 302 looks like this. 302. But if I went back to read that number, I would read it, the 302 is in the ones column, thousands, millions. That number is read 2,302. And is that what I have here? No, I have 2,302. So no, that is not correct. 2,302. Let's underline just simply the digits. 2 is written like this. 3, 2 is written like this. Is that the correct standard form? Well, let's read the number. 232 is 232. Is that what they asked me to write? They asked me to write 2,302. So no, that's not what they asked me to write. This is not the correct answer either. Let's move on and let's look at the correct way to write the standard form for this number. To correctly write the standard form for a number that's written in a word form, first I'm going to break it down by periods. I know that the periods are separated with commas. So let's see what I have. I have 2, I'll write down the 2, 1,000 is the period with a comma, so I'll put the comma to show that that 2 is in the thousands period. So that is 2,000. Move on to the next period, which I know will be the ones period, and it says 302. How do I write 302? Standard form, 302. There's nothing else after that. It doesn't have the name of any of the periods, so this is my final number. Let's double check it and see. If I read this number, it reads 2,302. And is that what it asked me to write? 2,302? Yes, it did. So the standard form 2,302 is the correct standard form for 2,302. Please stop and complete worksheet number 4. So let's take a look at another standard form example with example number 5. 5 says, what is the standard form of 20,108,056 and 268 thousandths? So I'm going to break this up period by period to solve my problem. Remember, the commas help us break it up by periods. And here I see that I have 20 million in the millions period. So how do I write 20? 20. Put my comma to show that it's the millions period. Next, I'm going to move to the next period, which I go all the way up to the comma, 108,000, comma, that's my period. 108 is my number, thousands is my period, so I'll write 108, 108 is 108, put my comma for thousands. Move to my next period, which is 56, and remember, and is the decimal comes after the ones column, so that's the end of that period. We have 56 and. So I'll write the number 56. Oh, but I see a problem. With the exception of the very largest column, all the way on the left-hand side, every other period needs to have 3 digits, right? Each period has 3 digits. And when I write 56, I only see 2 digits there. So what can I do? I can add a place value 0, but I cannot change the value. So in order to add a place value 0 without changing the value, I would have to put the 0 in front of the 56. So let's take a look at it. This is 56. This is 056. The value has not changed. They're both equal to 56. Now I can go ahead and put my decimal for my AND. Now I'll move to my decimals period, and remember, when I read or write decimal numbers, my last word is the place value column of the very last digit. So let's see what I have. I have 268 thousandths. Thousandths is the last digit. Okay, so I need to put 268. So I'll put 268. My last digit is the 8, and that should be in the thousandths column, is it? Well, let's take a look at the decimal. Tenths, hundredths, thousandths. Yes, that 8 is in the thousandths column. So let's do a quick double check. And I'm going to read it to be sure it's correct. So I look at my standard form number, and it's going to read 20 million, yes, 108,000, yes, 56 and, yes, 268 thousandths. Perfect. So that is the standard form for this number. Please stop the video and complete worksheet number 5. Remember, look carefully. You may need to add some place value zeros if you do not have 3 digits in a column. Go back to this example to help you with that, especially the green numbers. Okay, moving on to number 6, our next form for writing numbers is word form. Again, this is a review from a previous lesson. Word form is writing the number entirely in words. When you put a number in word form, you write it the way you read it. And you still place a comma after each period in word form. Finally, when you get to the decimal, remember that the decimal's name is AND. So let's take a look at an example of a word form problem. Write 782 in word form. Remember, word form is all words. We write it the way we read it. So I read that number, 782. Remember, there's no decimal, so I did not say and. It's simply 782. So that's what I write. 780-2. Remember, any 2-digit number from 21 through 99 gets a dash between the 2 digits. So 782. And that is the word form for 782. Please stop and complete worksheet number 6 right now. Example number 7 says write 200, 170, 821 decimal 02 in word form. This is one of the more tricky problems that you'll have to write in word form, so let's do it together and break it up section by section. I'm going to break it up by period, so I underline my first period, which has the 200 in it, and the comma tells me that's the end of the period. If I look at my numbers, it's 200, so I'll write 200 in words, 200. My comma tells me I need to write the name of the period, but which period is this? Well, let's see. This is the ones period, thousands, millions, so that comma means million. 200 million. Put the comma in. Now I'll move on to the next period. I have the number 170 with a comma. So I'll write 170, and I have to figure out what comma that is, what period that is. So again, it's ones, thousands, therefore it's 170,000. Put a comma after it. I move on to the next period, which I know is my ones period. I see the number 821, and I see a decimal next to it. So I will write 821, and I know the decimal's name is not decimal, it's not dot, it's not period. The decimal's name is what? And now I'll move on to my decimals period. 02, I know when I read that number, I read it as 2. And I know that that last digit is in the, that 2 is in the hundredths column. Because remember, for a decimal, the last word is the name of the last digits column. So, 02 is 2, and the last digit is in the hundredths column. That THS at the end is very important. So I have 200,170,821 and 2 hundredths. Always read it and check it to your original standard form number when you're done. I read it and checked it, so that is correct. That's my final answer. Please stop and complete worksheet number 7 right now. And for number 8, we move on to the third way of writing a number, and that is writing it in expanded form. Expanded form is expanding the number to show what each individual digit is worth. To do this, we write the digit times the place value column that it's in. Little reminders, we have to remember to surround each grouping with parentheses. And we have to put an addition sign between each parenthesis group. So let's work out an example of putting a number in expanded form. The directions say write 765 in expanded form. I'll start with the 7, my largest digit. I'll write that down. I'm going to say times, and what place is that in the place value column? Well, 7 is in the 100 column. So I'll say 7 times 100, put it in parentheses, and put a plus sign after it. Now I move on to the next digit, which is the 6. I write down the 6 in parentheses. What place value column is the 6 in? It's in the tens column. So I say 6 times 10, close the parentheses, put a plus sign. I move on to my next digit, which is a 5. Open parentheses, I say that 5. What place value column is that in? That's in the ones column, so I'll say 5 times 1 and close parentheses. I have now expanded all 3 digits in this number. 765 is 7 times 100 because it's in the hundreds column, plus 6 times 10 because the 6 is in the tens column, plus 5 times 1 because 5 is in the ones column. So this would be my final answer of 765 in expanded form. Please stop the video and complete worksheet number 8 right now. Number 9 is another expanded form problem with a much more difficult number. Write 24,102,376 and 58 hundredths in expanded form. Okay, I'm going to break it up digit by digit. First digit is the 2. So I'm going to open my parentheses, write down the 2 times, what place value column is it in? Well, the 2 is in the 10 millions column. So I'll write a 1 in place of that 2, and I will change everything else to zeros. So my 4 turns to a 0, put my comma, my 1 turns to a 0, 0 and 2, they all turn to zeros, that's 3 zeros with a comma. My 376 all turns to zeros, that's 3 zeros, close the parentheses. In expanded form, I don't need to put anything for my decimal column until I get to that decimal column. So the 24 is in the 10,000s column. I have in the 10 millions column, so I have 24 times 10 million. Okay, I'm done with the 24, and let's move on to the next digit. I'll put my plus sign, and now I can focus on that next digit. My next digit is the 4, so I'll open my parentheses, put 4 times, start with a 1 because it's in whatever place value column that it's in, and let's see. Next thing I come to is a comma, so I put a comma in my number. Now I have 1, 2, 3 digits, so I'll put, and a comma, I'll put 1, 2, 3 zeros, and a comma. 1, 2, 3 digits, 1, 2, 3 zeros. Close that up. So 4 is in the 1 millions column, so I have 4 times 1 million, put my plus sign. I'm going to move on to the next digit. My next digit is the 1, so I'll open parentheses and say 1 times 1, and let's see how many zeros I have. 1, 2 digits and a comma, so I'll put 2 zeros and a comma. 1, 2, 3 digits, 1, 2, 3 zeros. And now I can close my parentheses. So that 1 is in the 100,000s column, so I'm going to say 1 times 100,000 plus. Move on to my next digit. My next digit is a 0, so I'll open my parentheses, copy down that 0, times 1. I have digit, comma, so I'll put 0, comma, digit, 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 0, 0, 0, close my parentheses, and put a plus sign. So when you come across a 0 like this, you can certainly put it in just like I did right here. However, you also have the option to ignore the 0, because 0 times 10,000 is 0, so it does not change the value. So again, I can put it in like I did here in yellow, or I can ignore it, cross it off to show that it's 0 and I don't need to put it in, and move on to the next digit. And that's what I'm going to do here. So my next digit is a 2, put my parentheses, 2 times 1, and turn everything else to zeros. Comma, put my comma, digit, 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 0, 0, 0. Close my parentheses, put my plus sign. Now I'll move on to my next digit. My next digit is a 3, so I'll open my parentheses, 3 times 1, digit, digit, 0, 0. 3 times 100, because that 3 is in the hundreds column. Close my parentheses, put a plus sign. Now I move on to my next digit, which is a 7. So open parentheses, put 7 times 1, and I have 1 digit after the 7, so that's going to be 1, 0. Close it up, put a plus sign, move on to my next digit. My next digit is a 6, so I open my parentheses, put a 6 times 1, and there are no zeros after that. That's where my decimal is. And that makes sense because 6 is in the ones column, so I have 6 times 1, close my parentheses. There's more, so I put a plus sign. Move on to my next digit, and notice that I come across that decimal. That tells me that all the rest of my digits will be in the decimals column, so I'll need to multiply them by the decimal column that they're in. Okay, so my digit is a 5, open parentheses, put a 5 times, and that 5 is in the tenths column. How do I write 1/10? I write it as 0 decimal 1. So that says the 5 times 1/10, because 5 is in the tenths column. Put a plus sign. I'm finished with that digit, so I move on to the next one. My next and last digit is the 8, so I open my parentheses, I write 8 times. What place value column is that in? That's in the hundredths place value column. So for a decimal number, I start with 0, decimal 0, 1 because that's the hundredths place value, and close my parentheses. So that was the last digit in my number. I've used each and every digit. Remember, I took the digit and I multiplied it by the place value column that it was in. Parentheses around each grouping with a plus sign between each group of parentheses. This is my final expanded form answer for 24,102,376 and 58 hundredths. This is a long problem. It takes a little thought. It's not difficult. It just takes thought. You need to think about it as you go. So please stop and slowly complete worksheet number 9. You can certainly go back to this video, rewind it, play it slowly to help you solve worksheet number 9. Okay, I apologize. I do know that this is a longer lesson, but very often the directions will say something like this, and we do need to make sure that you know how to do it. So very often the directions will say, write the number in 2 other forms. So it will give you one form, and you need to figure out which 2 other forms you need to write it in. So let's try some examples so we know how to solve these problems when we see them in our workbook. So example number 10 says write the number in 2 other forms. The number they give us is 74. First thing I say to myself is I know that there are 3 forms, 3 ways to write numbers. Standard, word, and expanded. What form is this? What form did they give me? Well, this is standard form. So since they gave me standard form, I still need to write this number in both word form and expanded form. I set myself up for both of them right away, so remember that I need to write 2 other forms and don't get confused and think I'm done after I've written only one other form. So I'm going to tackle the word form first. The word form is words the same way that I read it. So that number, I read it 74. I'll simply write 74. 74 is a 2-digit number. That's 21, somewhere between 21 and 99, so notice I do put the dash between the 70 and the 4. Okay, I'm done with word form. Now I need to move on to expanded form. For expanded form, I'm going to write the digit times the place value column that it's in. My first digit is 7, so I'll open parentheses and write 7 times. That's in the tens column, so I write 7 times 10. Plus, my next digit is the 4, that's in the ones column, so I'll open parentheses and write 4 times 1, since it's in the ones column. I've used all my digits, so my expanded form of 74 is 7 times 10 plus 4 times 1. I have followed the directions. I have written the number 74 in 2 other forms. They gave me standard, I wrote it in word form, and in expanded form. Please stop the video and complete worksheet number 10 right now. Example number 11, same directions, but they give a different form to me. So the directions say write the number in 2 other forms, and the number they give me is 132. First I have to think, what form is this in? What form did they give it to me in? Well, this is word form, and I know there are 3 forms, standard form, word form, expanded form. So if they gave it to me in word form, I still need to write it in standard form, word form they gave me, and then I will need expanded form. Again, I set myself up because it would be too easy to write one answer and forget I needed that second answer. Okay, so my number in word form is 132. How do I write that in standard form? 132. 132. Done. Now when I get to expanded form, when I do expanded form, I like to do it from my standard form. So that's why I wrote my standard form first. I'll look at my standard form to help me. First digit is a 1, open parentheses, 1 times, and that 1 is in the hundredths place, so I'll say 1 times 100. Plus, done with the 1. Next digit is the 3, that's in the tens place. So open my parentheses, 3 times 10, close my parentheses with a plus sign. I'm done with the 3. Next digit is a 2 and it's in the ones place, so I'll open parentheses and say 2 times 1, close my parentheses, I am done with my number. So my standard form is 132. My expanded form is 1 times 100 plus 3 times 10 plus 2 times 1. Please stop and complete worksheet number 11 right now. And my final problem is example number 12. Again, same question, but they give it to me in yet a different form. Write the number in two other forms. So I look at the form that they gave me, 3 times 1,000 plus 7 times 10 plus 8 times 1 plus 5 times 0 and 1/10. And I say, oh, I know, that is expanded form. So if they gave me expanded, I still need to write standard, and I still need to write it in word form. Again, set myself up so I don't forget I need two answers. And if I work quickly, I say, oh, this is easy. It's just the digits. So 3, 7, 8, 5. I'm done. But always double check it and see. If I read this standard form, that would be 3,785. There is a 3 in the thousands column. The 7 is in the hundreds column. Uh-oh. Up here on the top in expanded form, that doesn't say 7 times 100. That says 7 times 10. So no. This cannot be correct. I can't work quickly. I have to work slowly with the problems in expanded form. So take the first parentheses they give me, 3 times 1,000. That's 3,000. So I'm going to put 3 with a comma for the thousands problem. If I work backward in place value order, after the thousands, moving to the right would be the hundreds. But I don't have anything here times 100. So I have to put a 0 to show that there's 0 times 100. There's nothing times 100 in this expanded form. Now, after the hundreds column, moving to the right is the tens column. And I see a 7 times 10, so the 7 can go in the tens column. Next would come the ones column. And I do see 8 times 1, so I can put an 8 in the ones column. Next would be the tenths column, the decimal column. So I need to put a period to show that I'm moving to decimals. And I do see 5 times 1/10, so that 5 would be in the tenths column. So I have 3,000, 7 tens, 8 ones, and 5 tenths. That's correct standard form. Now let's write this in word form. 3,000. 3,000, put my comma. 78. 78, right? Because 078 is the same thing as 78. Decimal's name is and. 5. And 5 is in the tenths column. So tenths, remember that THS shows me that it's the decimal place. So my standard form, 3,078.5, which is 3,078 and 5 tenths, and that's my word form as well. Please stop and complete your last worksheet problem number 12. When you're finished, come back to the lesson for a very short recap. So to review this lesson, standard form is the regular way we write the number. It's the way we write the number with digits. When writing a number in standard form, when you're finished, go back and read it and make sure it correctly matches the word form because it's easy to make a mistake. The next form we learned about is word form, which you write the number entirely in words. You write it the way you read it. You put a comma after each period, and remember decimal's name is and. When writing a standard form number in word form, we start from the left and work to the right, and we work period by period, as you can see here in this color-coded problem. Our final form is expanded form, expanding the number to show what each digit is worth. We write the digit times the place value column it's in. Remember to surround each one with parentheses and put an addition sign between each group. And this circle example is an example of 765 in expanded form. When putting a number in expanded form, remember if you get to a 0, like we see here in the yellowish gold, you can choose to write it in, or you can choose to skip it and move on to the next number. And finally, off in the directions will say write this number in two other forms. Remember there are 3 forms for numbers, so you need to figure out which form they gave you. In this case they gave us standard, so the other 2 I would need would be word or expanded. In this example, they gave me Word, so I would need Standard and Expanded. And in this example, they gave me Expanded, so I would need Standard and Word. So you need to figure out which other forms you need. Good luck with the lesson.